Assalamu alaikum students, a very good morning to you all. I hope you all are fine and doing great. We have started chemotherapy and it is one of the most important units in pharmacology because it is often asked in exams as well as it is important clinically. We all have been using antibacterials, antivirals, especially the antibacterials since we were kids, and if someone has never used any antibacterial in his life, I must say he's the luckiest man on this planet, or he's an alien, because it's not possible. We all have used these drugs at some stage in our lives, right? And because of this overuse, a lot of bacteria, they have developed resistance to the antibiotics, to all these good antibiotics. They are easily available over the counter in Pakistan, so they have been misused a lot. Even most of us, whenever we get sick, instead of going to a doctor, we start antibiotics on our own. We don't get the culture and sensitivity done. We just start any antibiotic. We don't care whether it is a viral infection, it is a fungal infection. We just start the antibacterials right there. So yesterday you were told about penicillins, and penicillins are one of the most commonly used antibacterials. You are done with its chemical structure, classification and pharmacokinetics. Professor Saab discussed that in detail with you. And today, inshallah, we'll be doing its mechanism of action, the mechanism of resistance, clinical uses and adverse effects. So when a drug is so commonly used, obviously we get curious to know each and everything about it. I hope I'll be able to answer all the questions that are in your mind in today's lecture. So let's get started. So let's check out today's learning objectives first. By the end of today's lecture, you should be able to write down the mechanism of action and the mechanism of resistance to penicillins. You should be able to write down its spectrum of action and clinical uses. There is a difference between spectrum of activity or spectrum of action and clinical uses. Whenever you are asked to write down the spectrum of activity, you will write the name of the microorganisms which are susceptible to these drugs. And in clinical uses, you write down the name of the diseases. Fine. Like you can write the name of the microorganisms like staphylococci, streptococci, etc. And in clinical uses, you will write pharyngitis, otitis media, the name of the diseases. You should be able to write down the adverse effects of penicillins, enumerate beta-lactamase inhibitors, and write down the rationale of adding them to penicillins. Please keep your notebooks and pens by your side and write down the important points being told during the lecture. Because these are really important drugs. They often come in exams and they are most commonly used. So you should know each and everything about them. You should know their chemistry. You should know their classification. Different types of classifications are really important, and you should know their pharmacokinetics as well. Before starting today's lecture, let's recall few important terms. Antibiotics are of two types. They are either bactericidal or bacteriostatic. Bactericidal are the antibacterials that will kill the bacteria, and bacteriostatic are the antibacterials that will stop the growth of bacteria. Penicillins are bactericidal. They kill the bacteria. And on the basis of their spectrum, they are divided into two types: narrow spectrum and broad spectrum. Narrow spectrum antibacterials, they kill less organisms, and broad spectrum, they kill more organisms. Now, before discussing the mechanism of action and the mechanism of resistance to penicillins, let's have a look at the normal structure of the bacteria and the steps involved in the synthesis of the cell wall, because penicillins are basically cell wall synthesis inhibitors. They inhibit the synthesis of cell wall in the bacteria. So bacteria has a cell wall. It has a plasma membrane, cytoplasm and the organelles. And we know on the basis of Gram staining, the bacteria are divided into two types: gram-positive bacteria and gram-negative bacteria. The main difference is that the gram-negative bacteria, they have an additional outer membrane, which is a lipopolysaccharide membrane. You can see this is the cytoplasm, this is the plasma membrane. This is the cytoplasm and plasma membrane of gram-negative bacteria. And then this is the peptidoglycan layer, which makes the cell wall of the bacteria. The peptidoglycan layer in gram-positive bacteria is much thicker as compared to gram-negative bacteria. And gram-negative bacteria has this additional outer membrane which is not present in gram-positive bacteria. So if a drug has to enter into the bacteria, it would be easier for it to enter into gram-positive bacteria because it lacks this outer membrane, which is a lipopolysaccharide membrane. Whereas gram-negative bacteria, they have small pores inside this membrane, which are called porins, which will allow the passage of certain antibacterial drugs, but not all of them. And this peptidoglycan layer is porous in nature, and the target for the penicillin binding proteins, they are present on the outer side of this plasma membrane. So the penicillins will easily cross this peptidoglycan layer and reach the penicillin binding proteins in case of gram-positive bacteria, but it would be difficult for it to reach the penicillin binding proteins of gram-negative bacteria. Therefore, the initially synthesized penicillins, they have more gram-positive activity, and the initially discovered ones like the natural penicillins, they have more gram-positive coverage as compared to gram-negative. Like penicillin G, it has gram-positive coverage, and the newer ones like aminopenicillins and the anti-pseudomonal penicillins, they enter the gram-negative bacteria through the porins because there has been alterations made in their chemical structure. Clear? So as we discussed earlier, that the antibiotics are divided into narrow spectrum and broad spectrum. So penicillin G and penicillin V, which are the natural penicillins, they will be narrow spectrum, and the anti-staphylococcal penicillins, they will be very narrow spectrum because they only target the staphylococci bacteria. Whereas aminopenicillins and anti-pseudomonal penicillins, they are extended spectrum penicillins. Apart from covering gram-positive bacteria, they also cover gram-negative bacteria because they can cross this outer membrane. So these are the important points that you need to remember. By this, you can also easily remember the spectrum of activity of different penicillins. So let's check out the structure. This is the structure of gram-positive. This is the lipid bilayer, the cytoplasmic membrane, and the space between the peptidoglycan and the cytoplasmic membrane is the periplasmic space. You can see this peptidoglycan layer is much thicker in gram-positive bacteria as compared to the gram-negative bacteria, which has a thin peptidoglycan layer. And gram-negative bacteria, they are also having this outer membrane, and they have lipopolysaccharides also in the outer membrane. And this peptidoglycan layer is porous, so penicillin can easily pass through it, and penicillin binding protein will be present here over the cytoplasmic membrane. And this outer membrane of gram-negative bacteria has porin, which allows passage of certain drugs through it. Not all, only a few drugs they can pass through it. So if we zoom in and look at the structure of this peptidoglycan layer, as the name suggests, it is made up of glycan and peptides. Clear? So peptidoglycan is basically, it is a cross-linked polymer of sugars. This is sugar backbone and amino acid. These are amino acids. This is the peptide chain, and this is the sugar backbone, which is made up of N-acetyl muramic acid and N-acetyl glucosamine. And the peptides, the peptide chain is attached to the N-acetyl muramic acid, and these peptide chains are then cross-linked, and this cross-linking of the peptide chain gives the cell wall its structural rigidity. And we know how important cell wall is for the survival of bacteria. So inhibition of this cell wall synthesis is the matter of life and death for the bacteria, because it apart from giving a structural integrity to the bacteria and giving it protection, it also prevents the osmotic it also prevents the cell lysis from high osmotic pressure. So it prevents the bacteria from the osmotic outburst. So you can imagine, if we'll inhibit the synthesis of this cell wall, osmotic pressure will increase inside the bacteria and the bacteria will burst and its death would occur. That's how these drugs are killing the bacteria. So remembering this structure is very important, because after doing penicillins, you will be doing other cell wall synthesis inhibitors. So you should know what's happening, right? As we discussed earlier, the peptidoglycan is made up of N-acetylmuramic acid and N-acetylglucosamine units, which are modified monosaccharides, and they are linked to each other by glycosylation. And amino acid chain, which is peptide chain, it is added to the N-acetylmuramic acid. And the NAM-NAG peptide units, they are cross-linked to another NAM-NAG peptide unit by transpeptidation. This linkage is due to glycosylation, and this is the transpeptidation linkage, which will link the two peptide chains of different NAM-NAG peptide units. And for this, a transpeptidase enzyme is required, which is the target site for the action of penicillins. This one is the penicillin binding proteins, and penicillins bind to this and they thus inhibit this transpeptidation. And when transpeptidation won't occur, this cross-linking between the two peptide chains won't occur, and the cell wall will be weak, and it can result in lysis of the cell wall. Since we have discussed the structure of the bacteria and also the steps involved in the synthesis of bacterial cell wall, it would be easier for you to understand the mechanism of action of penicillins. So whenever you get a question on the mechanism of action of some antibacterial, the first thing is you have to mention either it is bactericidal or bacteriostatic. So penicillins are bactericidal, means they will kill the bacteria, they will eradicate the bacteria. Next, you will write which type of drug is it, what is its main mechanism of action. Either it is cell wall synthesis inhibitor, protein synthesis inhibitor, nucleic acid synthesis inhibitor, or it is some antimetabolite, etc. So penicillins are cell wall synthesis inhibitors. So you'll write that the penicillins are bactericidal, they inhibit cell wall synthesis, and the important point to remember is that they kill bacterial cells only when they are actively growing and synthesizing the cell wall, because when the bacterial cells are actively dividing, they are making more and more new cell walls, and thus it will be more effective at that time. Now let's check out the steps of inhibition of cell wall synthesis. So first step is that penicillin will bind to the penicillin binding proteins, which are responsible for transpeptidation, and thus they will inhibit the transpeptidation reaction. They will also activate the autolytic enzymes. There are some enzymes present inside the bacterial membrane which keep on modifying the cell wall. They are called autolysins and will result in cell lysis and death of bacteria. Let's revise the mechanism of action. So penicillins are bactericidal, they inhibit the cell wall synthesis, they will bind to the penicillin binding proteins and inhibit the transpeptidation reaction. They also activate the autolytic enzymes and lead to cell lysis and death, bacterial cell lysis and death. So basically they are inhibiting bacterial cell wall synthesis by inhibiting the transpeptidation reaction. And the important thing to remember is that they will kill bacterial cells when they are actively growing. So if you'll give penicillins with some other antibacterials that would be bacteriostatic, they will decrease the activity or efficacy of penicillins because they are active on bacterial cells which are rapidly multiplying or dividing. So now let's revise the mechanism of action of penicillins. Let's see what was normally happening. This is the peptidoglycan layer. These are the peptide links, and this is the glycoside linkage between the NAM and NAG units. The bacteria keeps on modifying its cell wall by synthesizing new NAM-NAG peptide units, which keep on adding to the already formed peptidoglycan layer to further strengthen it. When a new unit comes, the autolysins, they lyse the older ones and remove them, and the new units, they take their place. And the first step that happens is the formation of the glycosidic linkage between NAM and NAG through transglycosidases. And then the next step is the formation of peptide linkage through transpeptidases between the two units. And this is the target site of penicillins. Penicillin bind these transpeptidases, which are the penicillin binding proteins, and not allow this cross linkage, due to which the cell wall weakens and cell lysis occurs. So as we discussed earlier, a lot of bacteria have developed resistance to penicillins and many other antibiotics. So what are the reasons of development of this resistance? So bacteria usually develop resistance to penicillin by 4 mechanisms. The most common one is inactivation of the penicillins by beta-lactamases, mainly the penicillinases. So beta-lactamases are the enzymes which are produced by certain bacteria, and these enzymes, they hydrolyze the penicillins. If you recall the structure of penicillins, they have a 4-membered ring which is called beta-lactam ring, and it was responsible for the antibacterial action of the penicillin. So these beta-lactamases, they attack that ring and they hydrolyze it, and thus they won't allow penicillin to perform its action, because they will hydrolyze the beta-lactam ring of the penicillin. Beta-lactamases are mostly produced by Staph aureus, by H. influenza, E. coli, Proteus, Enterobacter, etc. And beta-lactamases, they are mainly of 3 types: penicillinases, which hydrolyze penicillin; cephalosporinases, which hydrolyze cephalosporin; and extended spectrum beta-lactamases, which hydrolyze penicillin as well as cephalosporin. So this is the most common method of development of resistance by the bacteria, which is through production of beta-lactamases. That's why scientists, they developed a new group of drugs which were anti-staphylococcal penicillins, because they act on Staph aureus. They have protection against these beta-lactamases: fluoxetine, cloxacillin, dicloxacillin, those drugs. The second method of development of resistance is modification of penicillin binding proteins. As you know that the target site for the action of penicillin is the penicillin binding proteins. So if some changes will occur in the structure of the penicillin binding proteins, obviously the penicillins won't bind to it and they will not be able to perform their action. This is the most common method of development of resistance in case of MRSA, which is methicillin resistant Staph aureus. Initially, when penicillins were discovered, they were able to kill all sorts of bacteria, including the Staph aureus. But with the passage of time, what happened? The bacteria, they developed resistance by producing enzymes called beta-lactamases, especially the Staph aureus. So those drugs like penicillin G and penicillin V, they were not able to destroy that Staph aureus. Then scientists developed some new drugs which had protection against this beta-lactamases, and they killed all the Staph aureus bacteria for a lot of time. Then, because these bacteria, they also want to survive, so they keep on developing different methods by which they can survive this penicillin and all antibiotics. So what they did, they made some changes in the penicillin binding proteins, due to which even these anti-staphylococcal penicillins, they were not able to destroy them. And that was by producing changes in the penicillin binding proteins. So inactivation by beta-lactamases is the major method of resistance in case of Staph aureus in many gram-negative bacteria, and modification of penicillin binding proteins is the major mode of resistance in case of methicillin-resistant Staph aureus, which is known as MRSA. Then there are some bacteria which impair the penetration of drug into bacteria, and this mechanism, it is important in cases of gram-negative bacteria. So all gram-negative bacteria, they develop resistance by impairing the penetration of drug into bacteria. And as you know that gram-negative bacteria, they have porins in their outer membrane, and that porin, it allows the passage of the bacteria. So if the number of the porins will decrease, there would be a down regulation in the porins, or there will be absence of porins, or there will be change in the structure of porins, or they will become more narrower, than the drugs like aminopenicillins, which were able to penetrate the gram-negative bacteria, and anti-pseudomonal penicillins, they won't be able to do so. And the last mechanism is by increasing the efflux. Again, gram-negative bacteria, they produce efflux pumps, and these are the pumps present in the periplasmic space which throw out the antibiotics from the periplasm. So when the antibiotic will reach the periplasm, these pumps are present over there, and they won't allow it to go further, and they will throw it out of the bacterial cell. So these are four major mechanisms of development of resistance to penicillins by bacteria. One is the inactivation by beta-lactamases. Second is the modification of penicillin binding proteins. Third is the impaired penetration of drug into the bacteria. And fourth is the formation of efflux pumps which throw out the drug. So you can see this is the penicillin binding protein, which is the site of action of penicillin. This is beta-lactam ring. Beta-lactamases, they hydrolyze the beta-lactam ring, and it won't be able to bind it, and action won't be produced. The changes in the structure of porins, or down regulation of the number of porins, this occurs in gram-negative bacteria. And the changes in the structure of penicillin binding protein, this can also occur. This occurs in MRSA, methicillin resistant Staph aureus. These are the methods of development of resistance. Next is the spectrum of activity of penicillins, and as we discussed earlier, whenever you'll get a question about spectrum of activity of a drug, you will write the name of microbes only, not the disease. So we know that penicillins are narrow spectrum and broad spectrum, and we have to write down the spectrum of each drug group separately. So basically, penicillins, they give great coverage against gram-positive bacteria. So penicillin G is narrow spectrum penicillin. It provides coverage against gram-positive bacteria. It has excellent coverage against gram-positive bacteria, both gram-positive cocci and gram-positive bacilli or gram-positive rods. Also gives coverage against gram-negative cocci. So gram-positive cocci like streptococci, pneumococci, enterococci, and gram-negative cocci like meningococci, penicillin G has a good coverage against them. It also kills gram-positive bacilli like Bacillus anthracis, Corynebacterium diphtheri, and anaerobic gram-positive rods like Clostridium perfringens and Actinomyces. It has great activity against spirochetes, which are spiral bacteria. Treponema pallidum is the most common of it, and Treponema pallidum, it causes syphilis, and penicillin G is the drug of choice for syphilis. So penicillin G has maximum activity against gram-positive bacteria, and little coverage of gram-negative bacteria is seen in case of penicillin G. So here you can see it covers gram-positive cocci, gram-positive bacilli, gram-positive cocci like pneumococci, and gram-negative cocci like meningococci, gram-positive bacilli like Bacillus anthracis, and Clostridium perfringens, Treponema pallidum, and it is the drug of choice for syphilis. Next are aminopenicillins, and aminopenicillins, they are extended spectrum penicillin. So apart from giving coverage against gram-positive microorganisms, they also have a good gram-negative coverage. So you can see they give coverage against enterococci and gram-positive bacilli like Listeria monocytogenes, E. coli, H. influenza, Proteus, and Salmonella typhi. They are extended spectrum penicillins. They have good coverage against gram-negative rods. This is the mnemonic to remember the spectrum of activity of aminopenicillins. Aminopenicillins, they help to clear enterococci. H. influenza, E. coli, Listeria monocytogenes, Proteus, Salmonella, and enterococci. Enterococci and Listeria, these are gram positive, and rest of them, these are gram negative rods. Next is the spectrum of activity of carboxypenicillin and uridopenicillins. These are piperacillin, ticarcillin, carbanicillin, and these are also known as anti-pseudomonal penicillins. So a part of covering the gram-negative rods covered by aminopenicillins, they additionally also kill Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and this is the bacteria which produces green pus, and so these are the penicillins which kill Pseudomonas. So you can get a question in exam that write down the anti-pseudomonal penicillins. These are piperacillin, ticarcillin, carbanicillin. And you must have seen that all the penicillins, they end in cillins, right? Next are the anti-staphylococcal penicillins. These are very, very narrow spectrum penicillins because they have action against Staph aureus, Staph epidermidis, and only methicillin sensitive Staph aureus. These drugs are not active against methicillin resistant Staph aureus. Now let's check out the clinical uses. So the penicillins, they are useful in pneumococcal infections like pneumococcal meningitis, pneumococcal pneumonia, streptococcal pharyngitis due to beta hemolytic streptococci, streptococcal pneumonia, arthritis, meningitis, for staphylococcal infections, meningococcal infections, gonococcal infections. For syphilis, penicillin G is the drug of choice, and only one shot of penicillin G can cure syphilis. Actinomycosis, diphtheria, anthrax, tetanus, gas gangrene, rat bite fever, listeriosis, Lyme disease, erysipeloid for prevention of rheumatic fever, for prophylaxis before the surgical procedures in patients with valvular heart disease, for treatment of upper respiratory tract infection, for urinary tract infection, for typhoid and shigellosis. So if you know the spectrum, you can write the clinical uses, because if you know the microorganism, you know which disease is it causing, right? So the important thing to remember is that penicillins should never be used for viral infections and should be prescribed only when there is reasonable suspicion of or documented infection with susceptible organisms. So we have to use penicillins very carefully because already a lot of resistance has been developed. So we don't want to waste the drugs. So we should get a culture and sensitivity done first before giving the drugs. But if you are sure about a disease, like if a person is having otitis media or is having sinusitis, pharyngitis, you can easily prescribe penicillin to that patient empirically. Adverse effects of penicillins are very important. They could be allergic reactions, which are the hypersensitivity reactions, and the most rare one and the most serious hypersensitivity reaction is anaphylactic shock. It is type 1 hypersensitivity reaction, which is IgE mediated. Urticaria, pruritus, fever, joint swelling, hemolytic anemia, nephritis, these are also due to hypersensitivity, type 2 and type 3 hypersensitivity reactions, and they will occur after a few days of getting penicillin, whereas anaphylactic shock, it can occur immediately. Therefore, whenever we have to give penicillins intravenously, you must have seen in the hospitals that we give a test dose intradermally, and We encircle that area with a pen, and after 5 to 10 minutes we see whether there is a wheal or redness in that area, and if there is redness or something, means that the patient can have hypersensitivity reaction to penicillins, and we not give that injection to that patient. Complete cross allergenicity occurs between different penicillins. It happens that if a person developed hypersensitivity to penicillin G few years back and now he presented to you in the hospital, you will not give him aminopenicillin or uridopenicillins, because cross allergenicity occurs between different penicillins, and partial cross allergy exists between penicillins and cephalosporins. A person who was allergic to penicillins, there are chances that he is allergic to cephalosporins as well. They can also cause seizures in high doses. Nafcillin causes neutropenia, and methicillin causes interstitial nephritis. That's why methicillin is not used nowadays, because of interstitial nephritis. Oxacillin can cause hepatitis. Maculopapular skin rash can occur with ampicillin and amoxicillin, but this is not a hypersensitivity reaction. This is a toxic reaction of ampicillin and amoxicillin. This is not due to hypersensitivity. It is not immune mediated. Gastrointestinal disturbances occur like nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea with most of the penicillins, especially the oral ones. And secondary infections can occur. You have already been told about superadded infections. Vaginal candidiasis and pseudomembranous colitis, they can occur, and pseudomembranous colitis is most common with ampicillin, because ampicillin, when given orally, it will not get properly absorbed, and it will stay in the GIT, and it will inhibit the normal flora, and thus it will allow the growth of Clostridium difficile, and pseudomembranous colitis will occur. And irritation and local pain from intramuscular injections can occur. So the important adverse effects are the hypersensitivity reactions, and anaphylactic shock can occur in less than 0.05% of patients. It is very rare, but it is a serious adverse effect. Then nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, superadded infections or secondary infections, they can occur. And nafcillin is responsible for neutropenia, and methicillin causes interstitial nephritis. So these are the main adverse effects of penicillin. You can see here, it's a revision. Hypersensitivity, diarrhea, it could be pseudomembranous colitis. Nephritis, interstitial nephritis occurs with methicillin. Neurotoxicity, seizures can occur. Hematological toxicities like nafcillin causes neutropenia, and cation toxicity can also occur, as you were told earlier that penicillins are given as salts of sodium or potassium, so cation toxicity can occur if they are given in very high doses. So next are beta lactamase inhibitors. As we have discussed earlier, that many bacteria, they secrete beta lactamases, which are the enzymes that hydrolyze the beta lactam ring of penicillins, and we cannot use penicillin in those bacteria. So what we can do, there are certain drugs which are beta lactamase inhibitors. We can give them along with penicillins. So beta lactamase inhibitors are clavulanic acid, sulbactam, and tazobactam. You must have seen coamoxiclave, which is Augmentin. It is a combination of amoxicillin with clavulanic acid, and we have used it a lot, Augmentin, right? So what these beta lactamases do, or penicillinases, they hydrolyze this ring, and if we'll give beta lactamase inhibitors along with the penicillins, these inhibitors will not allow the beta lactamases to destroy this ring. So ampicillin, amoxicillin, ticarcillin, and piperacillin are available in combination with one of beta lactamase inhibitors, and the addition of these inhibitors extends the activity of these penicillins to include beta lactamase producing strains of Staph aureus as well, and other organisms which also produce beta lactamases, as we discussed earlier, H. influenza, Proteus, and Pseudomonas. You must have heard of Piptazo. Piptazo is a combination of piperacillin with tazobactam. It is used a lot nowadays. in the hospital settings. Now the drug interactions, penicillins, they have synergistic effect with aminoglycosides, because penicillins, they will inhibit the cell wall synthesis and will facilitate the penetration of aminoglycosides into the cell. And probenecid potentiates the action of penicillins by competing for excretion at the organic ion transport system in the kidneys. You have already been told about this earlier. And thus probenecid increases the duration of action of penicillins. And penicillins, they are not teratogenic. They can be used during pregnancy. Ampicillin is most commonly used during pregnancy. Well, that's all for today. Let's revise what we did today. Penicillins, they are bactericidal and they inhibit the cell wall synthesis of bacteria. They bind to the penicillin binding proteins and inhibit transpeptidation reaction. They also stimulate autolysins and thus cause the lysis of the bacterial cell and bacterial death eventually. And they are more effective in the rapidly dividing bacteria because they are synthesizing more and more cell wall at that time. Resistance developed to penicillins by 4 mechanisms. The most common one was due to production of beta lactamases. Then is the alteration in the structure of penicillin binding proteins. Third one is the impaired penetration of drug into the bacteria, and the last one is the production of efflux pumps. Penicillins, they are narrow spectrum and broad spectrum. The narrow spectrum, like penicillin G, they provide great coverage against gram-positive bacteria, gram-positive rods and cocci, and they also give coverage against gram-negative cocci. And they are drug of choice for Treponema pallidum, which is a spirochete. Then there are very, very narrow spectrum penicillins like anti-staphylococcal penicillins. They have coverage against, or they have activity against staphylococci only, and they don't give any protection against methicillin resistant Staph aureus. Then are the extended spectrum penicillins, aminopenicillins, which apart from having coverage against gram-positive bacteria, they also cover gram-negative rods like H. influenza, E. coli, Proteus, etc. And the anti-pseudomonal penicillins, apart from the coverage of aminopenicillins, they also kill pseudomonas. That's why they are called anti-pseudomonal penicillins, the uridopenicillins and carboxypenicillins. So they are used in the treatment of multiple diseases, and even today they are drug of choice for many disorders. Like they are drug of choice for syphilis. One shot of penicillin can treat syphilis. And in case of pharyngitis, otitis media, sinusitis, like upper respiratory tract infection, we always give penicillins. And because aminopenicillins and carboxypenicillins, they are penicillinase sensitive, we always give them with beta lactamase inhibitors like clavulanic acid, sulbactam and tazobactam. You have been given few MCQs. Just write down the question number, the statement and the correct answer and submit it in your WhatsApp group for attendance. The primary mechanism of antibacterial action of penicillin involves inhibition of which of the following is an anti-pseudomonal penicillin? There is a case scenario. You don't have to write down the scenario, just write down its answer. A 33-year-old man was seen in a clinic with a complaint of dysuria and urethral discharge of yellow pus. He had a painless, clean-based penile ulcer and non-tender enlargement of the regional lymph nodes. Immunofluorescent microscopic examination of the fluid expressed from the penile chancre of this patient revealed treponemes. A diagnosis of primary syphilis was made. Which antibacterial will you prescribe? Also write down its route of administration. So just write down the name of the drug which you will give to the patient and through which route it has to be given. Well, that's all for today. I hope you have understood the topic. If you have any query, you can ask me in your WhatsApp group or you can directly message me as well, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. try to make a concept of each and everything, and then it will be easier for you to memorize it. And to understand chemotherapy, you must have a sound knowledge of microbiology. So please read your microbiology along with chemotherapy. You must know different types of bacteria, their names, and which are gram positive, which are gram negative, because when you'll get a spectrum, you'll have to give headings of gram positive, gram negative, rods, and cocci, etc. So listen to the lecture carefully. Take care of yourself. Have a good day. Allah Hafiz.